My son told me not to set foot in his house until I apologized, so I took back every dollar that was keeping his family afloat. Have you ever felt your heart break into a million pieces while you just stood there smiling? Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd share. And if, for just a second, this feels familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me keep unburdening my soul. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Chicago, in my little bungalow in the Logan Square neighborhood. The lace curtains I'd inherited from my mother filtered the golden afternoon light, casting dancing shadows on the hardwood floors I had polished myself that morning. As always, just like every day for the past 5 years, ever since I was widowed and my routine became a solitary dance of cleaning, waiting for calls from my son Ethan, and saying the rosary in the rocking chair that had belonged to my grandmother, I was wearing my navy blue blouse, the one Ethan had given me for my birthday last year, and my gray Sunday skirt. I had fixed my hair in a perfect bun, just as my mother taught me. A lady must always look presentable, honey. You never know who might show up at your door. But no one had shown up. No one showed up anymore. The phone rang at 6:15. I know because I was watching the NBC nightly news while preparing chamomile tea in my favorite mug, the white one with little blue flowers I bought at a flea market in Wisconsin 20 years ago. I thought it would be Ethan, confirming Sunday dinner at his place in Lincoln Park for my grandson Leo's birthday, my little 5-year-old prince who had learned to say grandma before mama because I took care of him for his first 2 years while they were getting established. Mom? Ethan's voice was tense, like when he was a boy and had broken something valuable. Sweetheart, how are you? I was just thinking about what to bring on Sunday for. Mom, we need to talk. The tone. That cold tone he'd learned to use since marrying Nora 3 years ago. The same one he used when he asked me for money for rent, for Leo's preschool tuition, for the vacations they desperately needed. The tone that said, I need you, but I don't want you here. Is something wrong with the boy? I asked, feeling my fingers grip the receiver until my knuckles turned white. No. Well, yes, partly. Ethan sighed heavily. Look, Mom, about what happened on Saturday with Nora. Saturday. The day I went to visit them to bring the month's groceries, as I always did, and found Nora screaming at Leo because he had spilled juice on the new sofa. The sofa I had helped pay for with my savings from your father's pension. I saw my grandson crying, his little hands trembling as he tried to clean up the mess, and I couldn't stay silent. You don't have to scream at him like that, Nora. He's just a child, I had said in the softest voice I could manage, moving closer to comfort Leo. And she, with those green eyes my son loved so much, had looked at me as if I were a cockroach that had crawled out of the drain. Excuse me? Don't get involved in how I raise my son, Carol. You already raised yours. Mom, Nora felt really bad about what you said to her, Ethan continued, and I could hear an echo in his voice, as if he were in the bathroom or on the balcony, away from his wife. She says you attacked her in front of the child, and that it was very uncomfortable. My cup of tea grew cold in my hands. The living room felt bigger, emptier. Outside, the sound of traffic on the Kennedy Expressway seemed farther away than ever. Attacked her? Ethan, I just told her not to yell at Leo. He was crying and… Yeah, I know, but you know how Nora is. She's sensitive. She feels like you're constantly judging her. Sensitive? The woman who had told me my cooking tasted like old people food when I made my special brisket for her birthday. The one who never thanked me when I paid for their groceries, who would inspect my cart at Target as if I were her personal shopper. That was sensitive. Honey, I wasn't judging her. It doesn't matter, Mom. The point is, Nora doesn't want to see you on Sunday. She says she won't be able to feel comfortable knowing you're coming with that attitude. The world stopped. The wall clock, the one that had belonged to my parents, seemed to get louder. Tick-tock, tick-tock, like a bomb about to go off. What do you mean she doesn't want to see me on Sunday? It's Leo's birthday. He's my grandson. Yes, but he's also her son, Mom, and she's his mother. Look, if you want to come, you're going to have to talk to her and apologize. Explain that you didn't mean it and that you respect her way of raising Leo. I fell silent. Through the window, I saw Mrs. Joyce from next door carrying her grocery bags from Jewel Osco. She was my age, 63, but she walked tall, with purpose. I thought of all the times I had seen women like us begging for crumbs of affection from children who saw them as walking ATMs. And if I don't apologize, what then? The pause was eternal. I heard Nora in the background saying something to Leo, her voice sweet and sing-song when she spoke to him. How different it sounded from when she spoke to me. Mom, don't make this harder. Just say you're sorry and be done with it. It's your grandson. It's worth it, right? Worth it? Was humiliating myself worth seeing my own grandson? Groveling before a woman who had forbidden me from entering the house I helped furnish, from the family I helped support for 3 years? And if I don't? Well, then don't come on Sunday. It's that simple, that cruel, like someone canceling a dentist appointment. Are you seriously telling me I can't see my grandson for defending my grandson? Mom, please, just think about it. We'll call you next week and talk. And he hung up. I stood there, in my living room, holding the phone as if it might change its mind and ring again, as if Ethan might call back to say it was a joke, that Nora understood, that of course I was invited to Leo's birthday party, but it didn't ring. I walked to my bedroom with leaden steps. In the closet, hanging on the front hook, was the dress I'd bought for Sunday, a wine-colored dress with little embroidered flowers. It had cost me 2 weeks of my pension, but I wanted to look pretty for the pictures with Leo. I wanted that when he was older and saw the photos from his 5th birthday, he would remember me smiling, elegant, present. I touched the soft fabric. It was beautiful. And now it was useless. I sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't know what to do with my hands. They were always busy, cleaning, cooking, carrying grocery bags for Ethan's house, packing homemade meals that I already knew Nora would throw out because she didn't trust reheated food. I opened my nightstand drawer and took out the photo album. Leo as a baby in my arms. Leo taking his first steps while I applauded. Leo sleeping on my chest after I fed him a bottle because Nora was too tired from breastfeeding. Page after page of a grandmother who had been a mother when the mother couldn't be. And now, I couldn't even be at his birthday. That night, I dreamed of my mother. She told me, "Honey, love that isn't respected is lost. And sometimes you have to get lost to find yourself." I didn't understand what it meant, but I was about to find out. The next day, I woke up with a strange mental clarity, like when you emerge from a nightmare and for a moment, you don't know if what you experienced was real or just a product of your imagination. But the phone was still there, on the nightstand, silent, and the wine-colored dress was still hanging in the closet like a reminder of my new reality. I made coffee in the kitchen, using the Italian press that had belonged to my husband, Robert. The aroma filled the empty house as I tried to remember when all this had started. When had I become the grandmother who had to ask for permission to love her grandson? It was then that the memories began to flood in like waves, one after another, revealing the truth I had been denying for years. It all started when Ethan lost his job at the insurance company 4 years ago. He came to my house one Tuesday night, his eyes red and trembling like when he was a boy and had failed a test. "Mom, they laid me off," he had said, sitting at my kitchen table while I made him chamomile tea to calm him down. They were making cuts, and I was one of the last ones hired. Nora was pregnant with Leo at the time, 6 months along and with expensive cravings that Ethan could no longer afford. I had just received your father's life insurance, a decent amount that allowed me to live comfortably for the first time in my adult life. "Don't you worry, sweetheart," I told him, stroking his hair like I did when he had a fever as a child. "I'm here. You won't want for anything while you find a new job." And I kept my word. For 8 months, while Ethan looked for opportunities that were really worth it, I paid their rent, their utilities, their food, Nora's doctor appointments, everything, with a smile and without ever complaining, because that's what mothers do. They show up when the world falls apart. When Leo was born, I was the one who stayed at the hospital all night. Ethan had gone home because he needed to rest to be fresh the next day. Nora, exhausted after the delivery, handed me the baby and said, "You have more experience, Carol." I don't know what to do. For the first 2 years of Leo's life, I practically lived at their house. I would arrive at 6 in the morning to prepare the bottle and take care of the baby while Nora rested. Ethan had found a part-time job, but said he needed time to network and find something better. I changed diapers, gave bottles, rocked him all night when Leo had colic. I was the one who took him to the pediatrician when he had a fever, who taught him to walk holding on to my fingers, who sang Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star until he fell asleep in my arms. And all the while, I kept paying. Leo's crib, $900 from my savings. The imported stroller Nora saw at Nordstrom, $600. The monthly rent, $2,000 a month for 2 years. The weekly groceries, between $150 and $200. The utilities, electricity, gas, water, internet, cable, another $300 a month. Nora's maternity clothes, $500. The high-end car seat, $700. The diapers, formula, medicine, another $200 a month. I did the math while I drank my coffee. In 4 years, I had spent nearly $50,000 supporting my son and his family. $50,000 from my pension, from the savings Robert and I had scraped together over 30 years of marriage working as teachers. But it wasn't just the money. It was the time, the energy, the life I had put on hold so they could get ahead. While I was taking care of Leo, I stopped seeing my friends from the church knitting circle. "I can't make it. I have to watch the baby," I'd say every Tuesday when they invited me. I canceled my membership to the senior fitness class at the YMCA because money is a little tight this month. I stopped traveling to Florida to visit my sister because what if something happens and they need me to watch Leo? My life had been reduced to being useful to them. And when Ethan finally got a stable job at a digital marketing firm, when Nora decided it was time to regain her independence, and they told me they didn't need me to come every day, I thought the gratitude would finally come. The recognition, maybe a dinner in my honor, or at least a, "Thanks, Mom, for everything you did for us." Instead, I got criticism. "Mom, Leo is too attached to you. The teacher says he cries when we drop him off at preschool because he's asking for his grandma all the time," Ethan told me, as if it were my fault for being the most consistent person in my grandson's life during his first years. "Carol, I think you spoil him too much," Nora added during a family meal. "He needs to learn to be more independent." Independent? A 3-year-old boy who had spent more time in my arms than in his own parents. But I kept quiet, as always, because I didn't want to cause trouble, because I was afraid that if I protested, they would cut me off from Leo completely. And slowly, that's exactly what happened. The visits became less frequent. "We're really busy, Mom. Leo has swimming lessons, Spanish, music class. Classes I helped pay for, of course. Sunday family dinners turned into conditional invitations. If you don't have anything else to do, you can come over. But I can't promise we'll be home." And when I protested, when I said I wanted to see my grandson more, the answer was always the same. "Don't be so dramatic, Mom. You see him enough. Enough. Seeing my grandson for 2 hours every 2 weeks was enough?" But the calls kept coming when they needed something. "Mom, the washing machine broke. Mom, Leo needs a new uniform for school. Mom, we want to trade in the car because this one is getting old. Mom, Nora wants to take a graphic design course." And I always said yes. I always found a way to help, because they were my family, because I thought that acts of love accumulate like coins in a piggy bank, and that one day I could cash in all that affection when I really needed it. How naive I was. The final straw came last month, when Nora asked to borrow my credit card to buy new furniture for the living room. "Just this once, Carol. We'll give it back to you untouched in 2 months. 2 months later, when I asked about the card, they said, "Oh, Mom, we forgot." But don't worry, we barely used it. Barely. The statement showed charges for $2,500. Clothes, restaurants, a tablet for Leo, designer shoes for Nora. When I showed them the statement, Ethan's response was, "Mom, don't be cheap. You know we'll pay you back." Cheap? For asking about my own money. That afternoon, sitting in my kitchen with all these memories bombarding my mind like hail, I understood something that hurt more than anything else. I wasn't their mother and grandmother. I was their sponsor. I got up and went to my bedroom. From the nightstand, I took out an old notebook where I wrote down all my expenses, a habit I'd inherited from my mother. I began to write a list I never thought I would make. Money lent that was never returned. Favors that were never thanked. Humiliations I accepted in silence. Slights I pretended not to hear. As I wrote, tears fell onto the paper, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of wounded dignity, of a woman who was finally seeing reality without the filter of unconditional love. When I finished the list, it was 4 pages long, written in tight script. 4 pages of a life lived for others who had never lived for me. I closed the notebook and made a decision that would change my life forever. It was time to find out who Carol was when she wasn't serving anyone else. On Friday morning, I received a text message that confirmed what I already suspected. I wasn't family, I was a service. Hi, Carol. Ethan's in Dallas for work until Sunday. Could you watch Leo starting tomorrow night? My friends organized a bachelorette party in Lake Geneva, and I already paid my share. Thanks. Not please. Not, would it be possible? Not even a, hi, how are you? Just an order disguised as a favor, sent like someone ordering a pizza. What hurt the most was realizing that less than a week had passed since they forbade me from seeing Leo for attacking Nora, but when they needed a free babysitter, my supposed aggression no longer mattered. I wrote and deleted the response 5 times. I wanted to say no, to tell her to find someone else, that I also had plans, even if it was a lie. But in the end, I wrote what I always wrote. Of course, no problem. What time should I pick him up? Tomorrow at 7. And Carol? Don't give him as much candy as last time, okay? He's been really hyper lately. Hyper. My grandson was hyper because his grandmother gave him candy. Not because he spent all day on a tablet while his parents worked or went out with friends. That afternoon, I went to the Jewel Osco on my block to buy everything Leo liked. Animal crackers, strawberry yogurt, turkey breast to make him quesadillas. As I pushed the cart through the aisles, I ran into Joyce, my neighbor, who was with her daughter-in-law and 7-year-old granddaughter. Carol? How are you, dear? She greeted me with that genuine smile that reminded me what it felt like to be treated with affection. Hi, Joyce. I'm well. Just buying some things for Leo. Is he coming to visit this weekend? Her daughter-in-law asked, a young woman with a kind face who was holding her daughter's hand. Yes, he's staying with me, I replied, avoiding explaining that it wasn't a visit but a daycare service. You're so lucky, the daughter-in-law said with genuine admiration. We're always begging my mom to watch Sophia so we can have a date night, but she always has something going on. Her dance classes, her book club, her trips with her friends. She says she already raised her kids, and now it's her time to live her life. I stood there, frozen. There was a grandmother who set boundaries, who had her own life, who said no without feeling guilty. And there was a daughter-in-law who understood, who didn't manipulate or emotionally blackmail her. My mom always says, the young woman continued, that a grandmother's love is unconditional, but that doesn't mean we're free babysitters. That if we want her help, we have to respect her and value her. Joyce nodded proudly. That's right, honey. I adore my granddaughter, but I adore myself too, and raising kids with boundaries is raising them with love. I walked back home with those words echoing in my head like church bells. A grandmother's love is unconditional, but that doesn't mean we're free babysitters. When had I stopped adoring myself? On Saturday, I arrived at Ethan's house on time. Nora already had her suitcase by the door, dressed in a workout set that cost me 2 weeks of my pension when she asked me for money for comfortable clothes to exercise in. Leo's watching cartoons, she said, without even inviting me in. He already had breakfast, but give him a light lunch. No junk food, okay? And make sure he bathes before bed. I'll be back tomorrow around 8. Aren't you going to say goodbye to him? I asked, noticing that Leo hadn't even looked up from his spot in front of the TV. We already said our goodbyes upstairs. I don't want him to get dramatic. Dramatic. Like his grandmother, apparently. Nora left without saying thank you, without asking if I had any plans, without even feigning courtesy. She just got into her Uber and disappeared, leaving me in the living room with a child who greeted me without taking his eyes off the screen. Hi, Grandma. Did you bring cookies? That weekend was a painful revelation. Leo, my adored grandson, treated me exactly like his parents did, as someone who existed to serve him. When I asked him to pick up his toys, he told me, "You do it, Grandma. That's what you're here for." When I suggested we go to the park, he replied, "I don't want to. Just order me something from Uber Eats." At 5 years old, Leo had already learned that grandmothers were not people with their own needs, but domestic staff with limited privileges. On Sunday morning, while Leo slept until 11, something unthinkable when I was raising Ethan, I sat in my son's kitchen and really looked around for the first time in years. The appliances I had paid for, the furniture that came from my savings, the pantry that I restocked every week. Even the coffee I was drinking had been bought by me the day before. On the refrigerator, held by a Disney World magnet, a trip I also helped pay for, was a note from Nora for the woman who came to clean on Tuesdays. "Maria, please do not move things around. Everything has its specific place. Maria, the woman who came to clean the house that I maintained financially while I watched the child for free on weekends. Maria charged $50 a day. I charged nothing for 72 hours of childcare. At what point had I agreed to be worth less than the cleaning lady? When Nora returned that night, she was glowing, relaxed, with a new bracelet on her wrist and Instagram photos of her amazing girls' weekend in Lake Geneva. She didn't ask how Leo had been. She didn't thank me. She didn't even offer me a glass of water after 2 days of looking after her son. "Everything okay?" was all she said, while checking her phone. "Yes. Leo was very well behaved," I replied, hoping she would at least feign interest in the details. "Perfect. Thanks." And that was it. 48 hours of my life summed up in "perfect, thanks," uttered without even looking up from the screen. When I got home that night, I sat in my rocking chair and cried. But not from sadness. I cried from rage, from humiliation, from the shame you feel when you realize you've been complicit in your own mistreatment. I took out my phone and checked the WhatsApp group of my old teaching colleagues. It had been months since I'd participated in the conversations, because I was always busy with Leo when they organized their get-togethers. There were their lives. Rose had traveled to Europe with her husband. Martha had opened an online plant shop. Linda had started piano lessons at 60 and was already playing classic tunes at holiday parties in her neighborhood. Women my age living their lives, chasing their dreams, enjoying their free time, while I had become a shadow of myself, a woman whose only identity was being useful to others. That night, I wrote in my journal, the same notebook where I had listed my humiliations, a question that kept me awake. What would happen if I said no? For the first time in 4 years, I imagined a Sunday without Leo, a Sunday where I could have breakfast whenever I wanted, where I could go for a walk without having to plan activities to entertain a child, where I could read a whole book without interruptions. And instead of feeling guilty for thinking it, I felt something I had forgotten existed: excitement. The excitement of imagining my own life. On Monday morning, Ethan called me. His voice was casual, familiar, as if nothing had happened the week before. "Hey, Mom. How are you?" "I'm fine," I lied, because I still didn't know how to be. "Hey, I need to ask you a huge favor." "Another favor." There was always another favor. "Go on," I said, though my stomach was already tightening. "Nora and I want to go to a conference in Cancun next weekend. It's about digital marketing and graphic design, really important for our careers. Could you watch Leo from Friday to Monday? 4 days. He was asking for 4 days of my life so they could go grow professionally in Cancun. "Is it for work or a vacation?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. "It's both, Mom. You know how these events are. Work during the day, networking at night. Networking. Dinners at seaside restaurants while I changed diapers and prepared bottles." "Mom, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here." I was always there. Always available. Always willing to pause my life so they could live theirs. "So can you do it?" For the first time in 4 years, I didn't immediately say yes. I stayed silent, feeling something strange growing in my chest. Something that felt dangerously like rebellion. "I'll call you back," I told him. "You'll call me back?" Ethan sounded confused. "Mom, are you okay? You never say that. That's because you've never given me time to think about it." I hung up the phone, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for not giving an immediate answer. I felt powerful. because I had just discovered that no was also a word that could come out of my mouth. 3 days went by without me returning Ethan's call. 3 days in which my phone rang 16 times and I simply let it ring. For the first time in years, I wasn't available 24/7 to solve their problems. On Wednesday afternoon, as I was returning from the grocery store with my shopping, just for me, just what I wanted to eat, I found Ethan waiting for me at my front door. He was leaning against his car, a 2018 Ford Focus I had helped him make the down payment on, checking his phone with that impatient expression he had inherited from his father. "Mom, why aren't you answering your phone?" he said without even greeting me, without asking how I was, without offering to help me with my bags. "Because I was busy," I replied, taking out my keys. It was a lie. I wasn't busy. I had simply decided that my time was my own. "Busy with what? You never do anything on Wednesdays." "You never do anything." As if my life were so predictable and empty that he could schedule it like a washing machine. "Well, today I did something," I said, opening the door. "Are you coming in, or are you going to interrogate me on the sidewalk?" Ethan followed me inside, looking around as if it were the first time he'd ever been in my house. He sat on the armchair that had belonged to his paternal grandparents, the same one where he used to sit and do his homework as a boy, and looked at me with a mixture of confusion and irritation. "Mom, I need to know if you're going to watch Leo this weekend. We already bought the plane tickets." "You bought the tickets without confirming with me first?" "Well, yeah, because you never say no. I can always count on you. I can always count on you." The phrase any mother would want to hear sounded different when you realized it meant, "I can always use you." I sat across from him, in my favorite rocking chair, and for the first time, I truly looked at him. My son, the baby I carried for 9 months, the boy I raised alone for 2 years when Robert worked double shifts to pay for our house, the young man I supported when he decided to study marketing instead of becoming a teacher like us. When had he stopped seeing me as his mother and started seeing me as his employee? "And what if this time I can't?" I asked softly. "What do you mean you can't? Do you have plans?" The way he said plans was mocking, as if it were impossible for a 63-year-old woman to have a social or personal life. "And what if I do?" "But you don't," he said with that infuriating certainty. "Mom, seriously. This is important for us. It's a business opportunity. And why don't you take Leo with you? I'm sure there will be other families at the hotel." Ethan looked at me as if I had suggested they bring an alien. "Are you crazy? Take a 5-year-old to a conference? Mom, please, we need to focus. Focus. On their careers, on their future, on their opportunities. While I focused on changing diapers and preparing formula, what if you find someone else? Like who? We don't have money to pay a sitter for 4 days. Besides, Leo wants you." There it was. Emotional manipulation disguised as affection. Leo loved me, of course he did. But they had made sure that love was a one-way street, that I existed solely to give without receiving anything in return. "Ethan," I said, taking a deep breath, "when was the last time you asked me how I am?" "What do you mean when?" "I ask you all the time." "No. You ask me if I can watch Leo, if I can lend you money, if I can help with something. But when did you ask me what I'm feeling, what I need, how my health is, if I'm happy?" Ethan fell silent. I could see in his eyes that he was doing mental calculations, trying to remember a conversation that had never happened. "Mom, of course I care how you are. How am I then?" "You're fine. You're always fine." "And what if I told you I'm not fine? That I haven't slept well in months because my knees ache? That the doctor told me my blood pressure is high from stress? That some days I feel so lonely I talk to myself just to hear a voice in this house?" Ethan's expression changed. For the first time in years, he seemed to really see me. "Mom, I didn't know that. You didn't know because you never ask. You only show up when you need something. That's not true. When was the last time you came to visit me alone, without asking for money, without dropping off Leo for me to watch, without needing something from me? When was the last time you came just because you wanted to spend time with me?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Ethan looked at his hands, then the floor, then the window. Anything but my eyes. "Do you know what day it is?" I asked him. Wednesday. It's Wednesday, November 15th. Exactly 3 months ago, I had gallbladder surgery. Ethan looked up, shocked. You had surgery? When? Why didn't you tell me? I did tell you. I sent you a text. I explained I was going to be in the hospital for 2 days. Do you know what you replied? Ethan shook his head. You replied, will you be able to watch Leo on Saturday? Nora and I want to go to the movies. You didn't even read the full message. I saw reality hit him like a slap. His face slowly crumbled like when he was a boy and understood he had done something very wrong. Mom, And when I got out of the hospital, do you know who picked me up? Joyce, my neighbor, who brought me food for the first few days. Joyce, who made sure I took my medicine. Joyce. My biological family was busy watching movies. I didn't know it was serious. And what if it had been serious? What if something terrible had happened to me? Would you have found out? Or would you have kept sending me texts asking for favors until someone told you that your favorite ATM was out of order? Ethan stood up and started pacing the living room like a caged lion. I recognized the gesture. It was what he did when he couldn't process information that contradicted his version of reality. Mom, you're exaggerating. Of course we care about you. Do you care about me or do you care about what I do for you? It's the same thing. No, Ethan, it's not the same thing. And the fact that you can't see the difference is exactly the problem. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Nora. Carol, have you told Ethan if you can watch Leo? We need to confirm the hotel. I showed the message to Ethan. You see this? She doesn't even greet me. She doesn't even use please. She just gives me instructions as if I were her employee. Mom, Nora cares about you. That's just how she is. Her way is to treat me like a servant. And you let her. That's not true. Ethan, your wife forbade me from entering your house for defending my grandson. But now that she needs a free babysitter, my supposed aggression is no longer a problem. Doesn't that strike you as odd? I saw the exact moment Ethan realized the contradiction. His eyes widened slightly, like when you solve a difficult math problem. It's just, well, she's not angry anymore. Or could it be that her anger was just an act to put me in my place? To remind me of my position in this family? Ethan sat down again, this time closer to me. For the first time in years, he looked vulnerable instead of demanding. Mom, what do you want me to do? I want you to respect me. I want you to see me as a person, not a resource. I want you to ask me before you assume I'm available. I want Nora to treat me with basic courtesy. I want Leo to learn that grandmothers are not domestic employees. But you've always been this way. You've always helped us. Because I thought it was love. Now I realize you confused my love with servitude. So you're never going to help us again? The question revealed everything. He wasn't worried about having hurt my feelings or having abused my generosity. He was worried about losing his privileges. I will help you when you ask me respectfully, when you thank me, when I am able and willing to do so. But I am no longer your on-call employee. Ethan was quiet for a long time. I could see the gears in his mind turning, trying to process this radical shift in the family dynamic. And the trip to Cancun? Find another solution. Hire a sitter. Ask for time off work to take Leo with you. Cancel the trip. Ask Nora's parents for help. But this time, solve your own problem without assuming I'm going to sacrifice my time. Mom, this isn't fair. What wasn't fair was before Ethan. This is balance. My son left that day without saying goodbye, closing the door harder than necessary. But I didn't run after him to apologize as I had my entire life. I sat there in my rocking chair, feeling for the first time in years that I had defended my dignity. And that night, I slept better than I had in months. For 5 days, my phone maintained a silence that was strangely liberating. 5 days without anyone asking me for anything, without anyone assuming I was available, without anyone needing me to solve their problems. 5 days of being just Carol, not the mom ATM emergency babysitter. On Monday morning, I got up without rushing for the first time in years. I didn't have to check my phone for urgent messages from Ethan or Nora. I didn't have to plan my day around the needs of others. I simply made myself a latte in my favorite mug and sat on my small patio, watching the sun light up the geranium pots I had neglected from always rushing over to my son's house. It was then that I made a decision that would change everything. For the first time in 4 years, I did something just for myself. I called Rose, my old teaching colleague. with whom I had lost contact because I was always busy with Leo. "Carol, what a wonderful surprise!" Rose's voice was genuinely excited. "I was just thinking about you yesterday. The girls from the group always ask why you don't come to our get-togethers anymore." "I've been tied up with family," I said, realizing that had been my automatic response for years. "Oh, honey, but family will always be there. You have a right to live your life, too. In fact, tomorrow we're going to take one of those architectural boat tours on the river to celebrate Martha finally daring to paint her house pink, like she always wanted. Do you want to come?" A boat tour. I hadn't been on one in 3 years. The last time Ethan suggested we go, we ended up canceling because Leo got fussy and they preferred to stay home and watch TV. "Yes," I said without thinking. "Yes, I want to go." That night I went to bed early, excited like a little girl before a field trip. I took out my floral dress that I had bought 2 years ago and never worn because, "Why are you getting so dressed up, Mom? We're just staying home." Tuesday dawned perfect. Blue sky, pleasant temperature, the kind of Chicago day that invites you to be alive. I met Rose, Martha, Linda, and Connie at the Clark Lake L station. 5 mature, laughing, free women, determined to have a good time. "Carol, you look radiant," Martha told me, hugging me like we were long-lost sisters. "It's because I feel different," I replied, surprising myself with the honesty. On the boat, as we sailed down the Chicago River between the skyscrapers and listened to the tour guide, I felt something I had forgotten existed. Pure joy. Not the conditional joy of seeing my grandson happy because I had solved another family problem, but the simple joy of existing, of being alive, of enjoying a beautiful moment without having to take care of anyone but myself. "You know what?" Linda said to me as we shared deep dish pizza and beers. "Ever since I decided not to be the official caretaker for all my grandchildren, my relationship with my kids has improved so much. Now, when they see me, it's because they want to see me, not because they need me." "And how did you manage that?" I asked, genuinely curious. I stopped being available all the time. I started saying, "Let me check my schedule," instead of, "Yes, of course." And when they pressured me, I told them, "You had children, not me. I already raised mine." Rose nodded vigorously. I did something similar. I told my daughters, "You can count on me for real emergencies, but wanting to go out to party is not an emergency." They were angry at first, but now they respect me more. Connie, who had been quiet, added, "It's because we confuse love with total availability. But true love also includes teaching our children to be independent and to value our time." I returned home that afternoon feeling as if I had woken up from a long, heavy dream. For the first time in years, I had spent a full day thinking about myself, enjoying my own company and that of women who valued me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. My phone had 7 missed calls from Ethan and 12 text messages. I ignored them until the evening. "Mom, where were you? We've been calling you all day." "I was on a boat tour with my friends." "What friends? You don't have friends." The sentence stung like a knife, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. At some point in the last few years, I had sacrificed all my friendships on the altar of family availability. "Well, I do now," I replied with a firmness that surprised me. "Mom, we need to talk. Nora and I decided to cancel the trip to Cancun because of what you said. Are you happy?" The way he said it sounded like an accusation, as if I were responsible for his disappointment. "I'm not happy or sad, Ethan. It simply wasn't my responsibility to solve your childcare problem. Do you know how much money we lost? The tickets weren't refundable. Do you know how much money I've lost taking care of Leo for free for 4 years while you two lived your lives?" Silence on the other end of the line. "That's different, Mom. You're his grandmother. Being a grandmother doesn't mean being an unpaid employee. You're acting so weird lately. So selfish." Selfish. The word they use to manipulate women who dare to set boundaries. "Ethan, have you ever thought about what I want? About my dreams, my plans, my desires?" "Well, you've always wanted to help us." "No, I've always wanted you to love me. And I confused emotional blackmail with love. Mom, you're talking as if we're bad people. You're not bad people, but you have treated me badly. And I let you." That night, for the first time in years. I didn't feel guilty after a difficult conversation with my son. Instead of tossing and turning, wondering if I had been too harsh, I fell asleep thinking about what a wonderful time I'd had on the boat tour. The following days were like a second youth. I called a plumber to fix the leaky kitchen faucet that had been dripping for 2 years, something I had postponed because I should just give that money to Ethan for his expenses. I went to the public library and checked out 3 novels I'd been wanting to read for months. I signed up for the senior Tai Chi class held in Lincoln Park on Thursday mornings. Small things. Things any 63-year-old should be able to do without feeling guilty. But for me, every decision felt like an act of rebellion. On Friday morning, as I was returning from my first Tai Chi class, where I had met 3 lovely ladies who invited me for coffee, I found Nora waiting for me at my front door. She was wearing an expensive workout set, designer sunglasses, and that look of moral superiority she adopted when she wanted to manipulate me. In her hands was a bag of pastries from the most expensive bakery in Lincoln Park. "Hi, Carol," she said with a smile so fake it hurt to look at. "I brought some croissants from that bakery you like." I had never once mentioned liking that bakery. In fact, I found their pastries overpriced and pretentious. But Nora had assumed that because she had the money to buy them, they were automatically better. "Hello, Nora. To what do I owe the visit? Can't I come see my favorite mother-in-law?" Her tone was cloying, like someone talking to a fussy child. "You can," I said, opening the door. "But you never have before." We entered my living room and Nora sat on the sofa as if she owned the place, crossing her legs and looking around with that critical expression she always wore when she came over. "Carol, we need to talk. Ethan is very worried about you." "Worried about me or worried about losing my services?" Nora blinked several times, clearly not expecting such a direct response. "You're acting so strange lately. Very hostile." "I'm acting with dignity. If that seems hostile to you, that's your problem." "Look, Carol," Nora said, dropping the sweet act and adopting her real tone, the one I knew well. "I don't know what's gotten into you, but this attitude of yours is affecting our family. Leo asks about you, but I can't bring him to see someone who's like this." "Like what?" "So resentful." "I'm not resentful, Nora. I'm done. There's a difference." "Well, be done on your own time, not when we need you." There it was. The naked truth. I wasn't allowed to be tired when they needed me. "You know what, Nora?" I said, getting up from my rocking chair. "I think this conversation is over. Are you kicking me out? I'm freeing you from having to pretend you like me." Nora shot to her feet, furious. "You know what? You're right. I don't like you. I never have. You're always there, judging me, giving your opinion on how I raise my son, meddling in my marriage." "Meddling in your marriage? I've been paying for your marriage for 4 years. Nobody asked you to do that." "Really? Do you want me to show you all the text messages where you asked me for money for rent, for food, for utilities, for Leo's clothes?" For the first time since I'd known her, Nora was speechless. "And now," I continued, "you're going to leave my house. And the next time you want to talk to me, you will knock on the door, you will greet me with respect, and you will ask for things with a please. Like you do with people." Nora left, slamming the door so hard my window panes rattled. But I didn't tremble. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to the daughter-in-law who had humiliated me for years. And it felt incredible. After Nora stormed out of my house like a hurricane, I knew the storm was just beginning. For 2 weeks I lived in a strange calm, like those moments before a hailstorm when the air feels thick and electric. Ethan didn't call. Nora didn't text. Leo was nowhere to be seen. It was as if I had been erased from the family's existence as easily as deleting a number from a phone book. But I was fine. Better than fine. I was discovering who Carol was when she wasn't serving others. I woke up every morning with a strange feeling in my chest that took me days to recognize. It was peace. I ate breakfast whenever I wanted, watched the news without interruption, went to the market without having to plan meals for 3 people. My house felt bigger, more my own, quieter, but in a good way. On Thursday morning, after my Tai Chi class, I received a call I didn't expect. It was Leo. "Grandma?" His little voice sounded confused, as if he wasn't sure I still existed. "Why don't you come see me anymore?" My heart broke. My grandson, an innocent victim of the war his parents had declared on my dignity. Hello, my love. How did you get the phone? I asked Daddy for it. I told him I wanted to talk to you because I miss you. I miss you too, Leo. So much. Are you mad at me, Grandma? No, sweetie. I'm never mad at you. The problems are between the grown-ups. Mommy says you're sick. Is that true? Sick. Nora had decided my new attitude was an illness that needed to be cured. I'm not sick, Leo. I'm learning to take better care of myself. Can you come see me? Do your parents know you're talking to me? No. Daddy's in the shower and Mommy went to the store. I used her phone. My 5-year-old grandson had to make a clandestine call to talk to his grandmother. What had we turned our family into? Leo, tell your dad that I want to talk to him, okay? Are you coming on Sunday? It's my festival at school and I want you to see me. School festival. One of those important things I used to never miss, where Leo would always look for me in the audience to make sure I was watching his performance. I'm going to talk to your dad to see if I can come. Yay. I'll save you a seat in the front row. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen for an hour, wrestling with conflicting emotions. On one hand, I wanted to run to Ethan's house and apologize for everything, to go back to being the 24/7 available grandmother just so I wouldn't lose Leo. On the other hand, I knew that doing so would mean returning to the same toxic dynamic that had been slowly destroying me. It was time for the final conversation. That afternoon, I went to Ethan's house unannounced. I rang the doorbell and waited, feeling my heart beat against my ribs like a caged bird. Ethan opened the door, and his appearance shocked me. He had deep dark circles under his eyes, his hair was unkempt, and he had several days' worth of stubble. He looked like he hadn't slept well in weeks. "Mom," he said. And in that single word, I heard a mix of relief, fear, hope, and resentment. "Hello, Ethan. Can we talk?" "Yeah, of course. Come in." The house looked different, messier, more chaotic. Dishes were piled up in the sink. Dirty clothes were on the sofa. Leo's toys were scattered everywhere. Without my constant presence cleaning and organizing, the reality of their lives had become visible. "Where are Nora and Leo?" I asked. Nora took Leo to her mom's for a few days. She said she needed space. Space. The word we use when we can no longer deal with the consequences of our actions. "Ethan, Leo called me today. I saw the muscles in his face tense up. What did he say?" "That he misses me. That he wants me to come to his school festival. That he doesn't understand why I don't see him anymore." "Mom, this has gotten out of control. Nora is furious. Leo asks about you all the time. I'm stuck in the middle of it all and I don't know what to do." "You do know what to do, Ethan. Decide if you want a mother or an employee. It's not that simple." "Yes, it is that simple. If you want a mother, you treat me with respect. You include me out of love and not necessity. You thank me for what I do instead of taking it for granted. If you want an employee, you pay me for my time and follow a clear work order." Ethan sat down on the sofa, among the piles of dirty laundry, and for the first time in years, I saw him truly vulnerable. "Mom, I don't know how to fix this." "Start by deciding if you really want to fix it or if you just want things to go back to the way they were. I want you to be part of our lives again." "As what? As the grandmother who shows up when you need something? As the one who pays bills without question? As the one who watches Leo every time you want to go out? As my mom. And what does that mean to you? What's the difference between your mom and your unpaid employee?" Ethan was quiet for several long minutes. I could see he was struggling with himself, trying to find words for concepts he may have never considered before. "I guess. My mom is someone I love, not just someone I use." "And have you been loving me or using me?" Another long pause. When he spoke, his voice was broken. "I've been using you, Mom, and I'm sorry." It was the first time in 4 years I had heard a sincere apology from my son's lips. "And Nora?" Nora is used to things being the way they've been. It's going to be harder with her." "Harder than what?" "Harder than getting her to admit that she was wrong too." "Ethan, I can't have a relationship with your wife that's based on her being comfortable treating me poorly. And I can't have a relationship with you if you allow her to treat me poorly. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to talk to her. I want you to explain that if she wants me to be a part of this family, she has to treat me like family, not like the help." I want her to understand that things are going to change. And if she doesn't agree, then you two will have to decide what's more important. Keeping Nora comfortable in her disrespect for me, or having a healthy relationship with me? Ethan nodded slowly. And, in the meantime, what about Leo? Leo can come visit me whenever he wants. He can stay with me when I am available and want him to stay. But I am no longer an emergency babysitter. And I'm no longer going to pretend it's okay to be treated as invisible when you don't need me. Will you come to the festival? If I'm invited properly, yes. If I'm sent a text message with an order, no. Message assuming I'm going to be there, no. I'm inviting you now. Are you coming to Leo's festival on Sunday? Yes, I'll be there. For him. And after? After. We'll see how things go. If you two show me you really want to change, I'll be here. But if this is just a temporary act to get things back to how they were, we'd better make a clean break right now. When I stood up to leave, Ethan hugged me for the first time in months. A real hug, not the mechanical greeting hugs we had been exchanging. I love you, Mom. I really do. I love you too, Ethan. That's why I need you to respect me. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I gave my son the chance to choose between having a mother or losing an employee. I hope he chooses wisely." On Saturday, I received a text from Nora, the first in 3 weeks. "Carol, Ethan told me you two talked. I think you may have misunderstood some things, but for Leo's sake, we can try to get along better. The festival is tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the school. Leo wants you to come." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an invitation. It was a concession, like allowing a troublesome employee to come back to work on probation. I replied, "Thanks for the information. I will be there for Leo." Not for her. Not for Ethan. For Leo. But something had changed forever. I was no longer the grandmother desperate for scraps of family affection. I was a woman who knew her worth, and that changed everything. On Sunday, I arrived at Leo's school festival wearing the wine-colored dress I had bought for his birthday, the one I never got to wear because I was forbidden from attending. I looked good, and I knew it. I had slept soundly, eaten a leisurely breakfast, and gotten there on my own without depending on anyone for a ride. For the first time in years, I wasn't arriving as the pleading grandmother begging for a place in her grandson's life. I was arriving as a woman who knew exactly what she was worth. The school was full of excited families. Parents with cameras, grandparents carrying flowers, siblings running between the chairs in the auditorium. I saw Ethan and Nora sitting in the third row, with an empty seat between them that they had clearly saved for me. But I didn't go there right away. Instead, I approached Leo's teacher, Ms. Davis, whom I knew from the beginning of the school year, because I was the one who usually brought Leo to his parent-teacher conferences. "Mrs. Evans, it's so good to see you." She greeted me with the genuine smile that only teachers who truly love their students have. "Leo has been asking all week if you were coming. You look beautiful." "Thank you, Ms. Davis. I wouldn't miss seeing my grandson for anything in the world. He's so lucky to have you. He always talks about his grandma Carol with such love. He says you taught him how to read and that you make the best grilled cheese sandwiches in the world." I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with grandmotherly pride and everything to do with recognition. Here was someone who saw my value, who understood my importance in Leo's life without assuming it was my obligation to be there. "You know what, Ms. Davis? Leo is also very lucky to have a teacher who cares for him so much." When I finally made my way to where Ethan and Nora were sitting, I walked with a steady pace, without the anxious rush of someone who fears being late to their own humiliation. "Hello," I said simply, sitting in the chair they had saved. "Mom, you look great," Ethan said, and I heard genuine surprise in his voice, as if he hadn't really seen me in years. Nora muttered a hello that sounded more like an acknowledgement of my presence than a greeting. The festival began, and I saw Leo on stage, dressed as Paul Revere, reciting a poem about his famous midnight ride with the seriousness only children possess when they feel important. When he saw me in the audience, his face lit up completely, and he gave me a little wave, slightly breaking school protocol. In that moment, I knew that regardless of what happened with Ethan and Nora, my relationship with Leo would remain intact, because true love isn't lost when you set boundaries. It's purified. After the event, Leo ran towards me like a small projectile of joy. "Grandma, you came? Did you see my poem? Did you like my three-cornered hat?" It was perfect, my love. You were the handsomest Paul Revere in the whole school. Leo laughed with that crystal-clear laugh that reminded me why it had been worth fighting to be there. Are you coming to our house for lunch? He asked, hanging on my arm. Before I could answer, Ethan approached. Mom, we made brisket. Your recipe. Will you stay? It was the first real invitation I had received in months. Not an emergency summons, not a request disguised as a favor. An invitation to share a home-cooked meal prepared with my own recipe. I'll stay, I said. But I have to leave at 5. I have plans. It was a lie. I had no plans. But I needed them to know that my time had limits, that my availability was not infinite. At Ethan's house, for the first time in years, I sat at the table as a guest, not as a servant. Nora served the food, my brisket, without asking me to help in the kitchen. Ethan took care of the dishes. Leo showed me his latest drawings. It was strange and wonderful to be treated like a valued member of the family instead of support staff. Halfway through the meal, Nora spoke directly to me for the first time. Carol, I need to tell you something. The tone was different. Not the condescending one she had used for years, but something that was dangerously close to humility. Go on. Ethan explained some things about how I've been behaving towards you. And I think I haven't been fair. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was the beginning of one. What made you realize? I asked, genuinely curious. These past few weeks without your help have been difficult, very difficult. I realized how much you do for us, and how little we thank you. And I also realized that Leo needs you, not just to watch him, but because he truly loves you. And I don't have the right to cut off that relationship because of my own issues. What issues? Nora stared at her plate for a long time before answering. I thought you were meddling, controlling, that you wanted to run our lives. But Ethan made me see that all you were doing was helping us when we needed it. And what do you think now? Now I think that I mistook your generosity for interference, and that I reacted badly because I was afraid you were judging me as a mother. It was the most honest conversation we had ever had. Nora, I never wanted to judge you. I just wanted to protect Leo when I saw him hurting. I know that now. Leo, who had been listening to the conversation between drawing sessions, looked up. Are you guys not going to fight anymore? Can I go to Grandma Carol's house whenever I want now? Ethan and Nora looked at each other. Yes, Leo, Ethan said. But you'll go when Grandma Carol is able and wants you to come, not just when we need you to go. What's the difference? Leo asked with the brutal honesty of a child. The difference, I answered, is that before, you came to my house because your parents couldn't take care of you. Now you're going to come because you want to be with me, and I want to be with you. Like when we go to the park just because it's fun. Exactly like that. At 5 o'clock sharp, I stood up from the table. I have to go. Where are you going? Leo asked. Home, to read a book, to have some tea, to do things that I like. Can I come with you another day? Of course. Whenever you want, and whenever I'm free. Ethan walked me to the door. Mom, how do we know this is going to work? That we can really change? You don't, I replied. But I know that I've already changed, and I won't allow myself to be treated like before. What if we make mistakes? What if we sometimes forget and slip back into old habits? Then I'll remind you, but with clear boundaries and real consequences. Can you give me an example? If you speak to me like an employee again, I'll leave. If you disrespect me, I won't come back until you apologize. If you assume I'm available without asking me, the answer is automatically no. Ethan nodded slowly. I get it. It's like building new habits. Exactly. You two are going to learn how to treat me well, and I'm going to learn not to accept anything less than I deserve. That night, in my quiet but no longer empty house, I made chamomile tea in my favorite mug and sat in my rocking chair to read the novel I had been putting off for months. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the phone to ring with a family emergency. I wasn't planning my weekend around other people's needs. I wasn't feeling guilty for doing something for myself. I was, simply, living my life. 15 minutes into the absolute tranquility, my phone buzzed with a message from Leo, from Ethan's phone. Grandma, I love you. Thanks for coming to my festival. Can I come over on Saturday so you can teach me how to make grilled cheese? I replied. I love you too, sweetie. You can come over on Saturday if your parents drop you off at 10 a.m. and pick you up at 6 p.m. We'll make grilled cheese and watch cartoons. It was a scheduled visit, with clear hours, with defined expectations. Not an emergency disguised as a favor, and it felt perfect. That night I slept like I hadn't slept in years, with a clear conscience and a full heart. Knowing that I had chosen self-love without losing my family's love, I had learned that setting boundaries didn't mean building walls. It meant building doors that I could open and close whenever I chose. 6 months later, as I watched the sunset from my backyard with a cup of coffee in my hands, I reflected on the journey I had taken since that devastating afternoon, when my son forbade me from seeing my grandson, the woman I had been, that grandmother desperate for crumbs of affection, that mother who confused love with total availability, seemed like a ghost from the past. I didn't miss her. My life had filled with colors I had forgotten existed. On Tuesdays, I still went to the knitting circle at the church, where the ladies welcomed me like a hero returned from a long, difficult war. On Thursdays, I continued my Tai Chi classes in Lincoln Park, where I had made 3 friends who invited me for walks along the lakefront on Sunday mornings. I had started a baking class at the local community arts center. At 63, I was learning to make French macarons and lemon meringue pie. My hands, which for years had only cooked for others, now created delights that I enjoyed while reading novels in my rocking chair. The house that once felt like a museum of painful memories was now my sanctuary. I had painted the living room walls a soft yellow that reminded me of sunflowers. I had bought new plants for the patio. I had rearranged my bedroom so the morning light came straight in, waking me each day with the promise of new possibilities. Leo came to visit every Saturday, but now our time together had a completely different flavor. He no longer arrived as a refugee from a house where his parents couldn't care for him. He came as a grandson who wanted to spend time with his grandmother, who enjoyed learning family recipes, who was excited to tell me about his week at school. We had established traditions that were ours. On Saturday mornings, we made grilled cheese together while I told him stories about when his dad was a boy. In the afternoons, we'd go to the Lincoln Park Zoo to see the animals, and he'd show me the new tricks he'd learned on the monkey bars. Ethan had kept his word. He no longer called only when he needed something. Now he called to ask how I was, to tell me about his work, to ask for motherly advice, not an employee's help. Last week he had brought me flowers for no special reason, just because he was thinking of me. Nora had turned out to be an unexpected surprise. Once she stopped seeing me as a threat and I stopped being available to be mistreated, we discovered we could get along. We weren't best friends, but we had developed a mutual respect that worked. She had even asked me to teach her my secret brisket recipe, something I never thought would happen. The most profound transformation, however, had occurred within myself. I had rediscovered who Carol was beyond her roles as mother and grandmother. I was an intelligent woman who enjoyed deep conversations with her friends about books and politics. I was a creative person who found joy in trying new recipes and decorating her house. I was an independent woman who could make decisions about her time and money without consulting anyone else. I had learned to say no without feeling guilty. Last week, when Ethan asked if I could watch Leo so he and Nora could go to a work dinner, I told him I couldn't because I had plans with my Tai Chi friends. Instead of insisting or emotionally manipulating me, he simply said, "Okay, Mom, we'll figure something else out." And they did. Like responsible adults who had learned that having a child means solving your own childcare problems. Money had also stopped being a source of conflict. I had stopped giving money away and started lending it with clear conditions and defined deadlines. When Ethan needed help with a car repair last month, he asked to borrow $500 with a 3-month repayment plan, and he had paid it back faithfully, month after month. But more important than any external change was the inner peace I had found. I no longer woke up with anxiety, wondering what family problem I would have to solve that day. I didn't check my phone every 5 minutes waiting for urgent messages. I didn't live in a constant state of emergency. I had learned the difference between love and codependence, between being useful and being used, between giving out of love and giving out of fear of abandonment. One afternoon, while I was making dinner just for myself, something that used to seem depressingly lonely I received an unexpected message from an unknown number. Mrs. Evans, this is Sarah, Ethan's next-door neighbor. I hope I'm not bothering you, but your son gave me your number. I'm having a difficult situation with my own family, and he said you might be able to offer some advice because you went through something similar. Could we possibly talk sometime? I stared at the message for several minutes. My story had transcended the walls of my home and had reached the ears of another woman struggling with toxic family dynamics. Ethan had seen my transformation as something valuable, something that could help others. I replied, "Hello, Sarah. Of course we can talk. Would you like to come over for coffee at my house on Tuesday afternoon?" That night, as I wrote in my journal, a practice I had resumed as part of my healing process, I reflected on the transformative power of knowing your own worth. I had discovered that respect isn't begged for. It's earned by setting clear boundaries. That true love isn't bought with infinite sacrifices. It's built on genuine reciprocity. That being useful doesn't mean being invisible, and that caring for others doesn't require abandoning yourself. Last Sunday, during our weekly outing with my friends, Rose had asked me a question that stuck with me. "Carol, don't you miss anything about how things used to be?" I thought about it all the way back on the L train. Did I miss anything from that life of unconditional service, of being available 24/7, of measuring my worth by my usefulness to others? The answer was complex. I missed the feeling of being needed, but I didn't miss being invisible. I missed feeling important to my family, but I didn't miss that importance depending solely on what I could provide. I missed the closeness with Leo, but I didn't miss that closeness being conditional on my constant availability. The woman I was now had less control over the lives of others, but she had total control over her own. She had less influence on family decisions, but she had a full voice in the decisions that affected her directly. She saw her family less, but when she did, it was for genuine reasons of love, not convenience. I had learned that time alone is not wasted time when you use it to reconnect with yourself. That having boundaries doesn't make you selfish, it makes you healthy. That loving your family doesn't require sacrificing your identity. Now, as I finished my coffee on the patio where my geraniums bloomed exuberantly under my conscious care, I knew I had found something I had been searching for my whole life without knowing it. My own company. I was a whole woman, with or without a family that needed me. I was valuable, with or without money to give. I was loved, with or without services to offer. And that freedom, that peace, that reclaimed dignity were priceless. The phone rang. It was Leo. "Grandma, can you teach me how to make rainbow jello next Saturday? Mommy says yours is the best in the world." "Of course, my love. We'll make the most colorful jello you've ever seen." "I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, Leo. See you on Saturday." I hung up the phone with a smile. My grandson loved me. My son respected me. My daughter-in-law tolerated me with genuine courtesy. But more importantly, I loved myself, and that had made all the difference. Have you ever felt like you give so much love that you forget to save a little for yourself? Do you know someone who lives serving others until they lose themselves? Share your experience in the comments. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe so this message can reach someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the story of a grandmother who reclaimed her dignity can be the push someone else needs to reclaim their own.